Hey everybody, welcome back to, I guess what's part 2 of my little David versus Goliath series. And as I mentioned in the previous video I was comparing the Pod Go reverbs to what many would consider to be a superior reverb pedal, which was the Strymon Blue Sky, which I kept referring to as the Big Sky. Yeah, I'm real smart. I had a real series of brain farts there. Of course, Strymon does have the Big Sky pedal. It's the bigger brother to the Blue Sky. So anyways, today I wanted to shift gears and do a similar comparison, but this time using the Strymon El Capistan pedal, which is their tape echo or tape delay pedal. Very well-renowned pedal, very well-reviewed pedal. A lot of folks really think Strymon did an amazing job on this, and I agree too in the short amount of time that I've had it. Again, the reason I grabbed these is because I have an HX Stomp pedal board. Actually, it's what I use for the most part when I play live. And I've been kind of revamping that to add a few more cool toys on it, and I'll have a video about that soon. But I added the Strymon Blue Sky pedal and the El Capistan simply because I'm a real delay reverb fanatic in a sense. Not a lot of it, but I like to have it on almost all my presets. You know, delay, reverb on all the time pretty much. Delay just on some of the lead parts and whenever I feel I need it. So I thought, man, it would be kind of cool if I'm always using up blocks in the HX Stomp. What if I just had those fixed at the end and then I freed up some blocks in the Stomp to do other things with and other effects. So that's what I did. So I added an El Capistan and a Strymon Blue Sky to my pedal board. Very happy with them, but I thought what a cool opportunity to take them before I actually put that pedal board together and take a look at how they measure up to the effects we get in the Pod Go, which are basically, I mean, the same effects we get in the Helix and the HX Stomp, but I thought I'm gonna go to the lowest cost unit Line 6 megs, which in this case is the Pod Go, and see how it measures up. You know, being a unit that's you know, under $500 versus, you know, something like, I think street price on an El Capistan is around $300, $299 in the US. So, you know, price-wise, this is a dedicated delay versus the Pod Go, which can do so much more. And again, I'm not expecting the Pod Go to necessarily win, but it's just interesting to see how it stacks up. So what I've done, a lot of folks who watch my videos know that I really am a big fan of the Transistor Tape, which is the model of an Echoplex, which is from what I understand, a single-headed moving head tape delay, right? So that the head moves to vary delay times and whatnot. So what I did is I compared that. You got to remember with the El Capistan, it's a very full-featured delay pedal, a lot of functions. It has both fixed and moving head tape delays, and you can switch that, as you'll see in a minute when I put it on screen. So I chose the single mode, I believe that's what it's called. Yeah, the tape head mode is single, as I felt that mostly matched up with what would be similar to the Echoplex, and then I chose the Echoplex in the Pod Go. Let's go over to Pod Go, edit, and we'll take a look at what I've done. And if anybody who watched the video yesterday, it's a very similar setup. Same preset, but what I did is I got rid of the reverb and I put in, as you see here, the Transistor Tape delay with these settings for now. So that's snapshot 2. You'll notice this is turned off. But when I go to snapshot 1, it goes back on. I'm not sure why that doesn't light up. But anyways, that's on snapshot 1. So, and the effects loop is off. So again, in mono, I have, as you can see over here, the El Capistan hooked into a loop in the Pod Go. So when I go to snapshot 1, it's going to be the internal transistor tape of the Pod Go. When I go to snapshot 2, you'll see that turns off and the effects loop turns on, and that's going to be, see, that'll turn back off here. The switch is off, right? So number 1, snapshot 1 will be the Pod Go Echoplex, and snapshot 2, that goes off and the effects loop goes on, which is the Strymon El Capistan set to mimic something similar to the Echoplex. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. Keep in mind, like I said, the Strymon is going to have a lot more features. There's a secondary page on the Strymon El Capistan where we can actually adjust things like tape bias and I believe like tape crinkle, they call it, like to really, and you'll notice there's a tape age knob right here as well. So there's some things obviously we can't do with the transistor tape, which we couldn't do with an original Echoplex either, except by putting an older tape in, you know, or having a bad quality tape. So really neat. The folks at Strymon really knocked it out of the park with this. And if you want a really tweakable delay pedal, I couldn't recommend the El Capistan enough. It's amazing. But let's just see with the parameters we do have how the Pod Go transistor tape measures up. So let me grab a guitar and we'll get right to it. All right, so here we are back. Here I'm on my neck pickup, Seymour Duncan single coil. Let me just shut the delay off altogether. So this is with no delay. This is what the preset sounds like. All right, so that's the, I believe, the Matchstick Channel 1 model on the Pod Go. Nice sound, very dry, bone dry. We'll get some delay going on that. So here is the settings that I used. I put the feedback around 50% so we get a fair number of repeats out of it. And if you notice over here on the repeats, I have that up close to 50%. I tried to match them up fairly close so we can kind of not be hearing any other differences than just the quality of the repeats and what's going on it. I've set the delay times to get fairly close. I don't think it matters if they're slightly off, but they're fairly close. For now, I've turned the wow and flutter down to 0 on both. I've got this compressor at the end, which is doing nothing other than collapsing everything to mono, since I have this set up in mono. I didn't want any sort of stereoized, although I've brought the spread down and the scale up, so there's really no stereo component or qualities to the Pod Go's transistor tape, but what we're hearing is in mono. I put the mix around 50% and I put the recommended setting on the El Capistan so the mix is about the same level volumes. So here's what we get. There's no wow and flutter, so we're not adding in any of those, like, you know, the transistor tape's ability to give a more unsteady tape effect, let's call it. Okay, so this is what this sounds like. Very nice. I really like the way it sounds. Let's switch over to Snapshot 2 and take a listen to similar settings, as close as I could kind of get them, you know, dialing them really quickly, over on the Strymon El Capistan. Switch back to the transistor tape. Pretty impressive. At these settings, I wouldn't give one or another the clear winner. Now, the thing about it is we have the tape age, and if you notice where I have it set, if I change that here on the El Capistan, let's go right to 0 on that. Let's listen to the sound of the delays if they're darker or brighter. So we can really hear how we have the ability to darken those delays up a lot as if the tape is very old. You hear some of the warble in there? Now you're going to hear, if I compare that over to the transistor tape, so I find around that tape age setting, it's very comparable to the transistor tape. Now that's not a knock on the transistor tape because that's probably modeled after whatever unit the folks at Line 6 had to model it after and whatever age the tape was at the time. So that's the way a real Echoplex would work. These folks at Strymon have given us this ability to be able to dial us in many ways, which is really cool. So I mean, for that, you know, you have to give the nod to Strymon. But again, it's a dedicated unit. Solely, you know, sole purpose is to give us all sorts of beautiful tape effects, and they've knocked it out of the park with it. So really nice. It's up to somebody whether they decide whether it's worth the extra money to have those features or not. So obviously if I turn that tape age down and off, I get a much nicer, brighter kind of delay. You can hear it in the high end. If I go back to the transistor tape, it's slightly darker as if the tape maybe was a little bit older, but I find that right there, it's very similar. Close enough, right? Okay, so now where we get into the wow and flutter is where we're gonna see a big difference, I found. Let's just crank the wow and flutter up on the transistor tape, and we'll do the same over here on the El Capistan. So here is the wow and flutter all the way up on the Pod Go. Now if this was in stereo, you would hear, and I turned my spread up, you'd hear a real stereo effect to the wow and flutter. But that's, again, I didn't have the cabling to get it all hooked up the way I wanted. So here we go again with the wow and flutter. You hear sort of on the end tails how there's an instability to the delays. How it sounds moving in and out of tune a bit warbly. Again, if I turn that off, listen to the difference. It's much more solid as it trails out. Get that little warble in there. Now let's go over with the cranked wow and flutter over on the El Capistan. Much more dramatic. Really hear it there. Back to the transistor tape. So it does give a much sort of deeper wow and flutter than the transistor tape, but again, it's a dedicated pedal. I was expecting it to do that. So what's kind of neat about this though is that with the El Capistan, I mean, if somebody was really a delay junkie, really a huge fanatic of being able to tweak those delays, I find the El Capistan is kind of unbeatable in a way, which is really nice, you know, if you are sort of in that frame of mind where you really want that ultra tweakability. And this isn't going to be about going to the secondary features and whatnot, but you know, something like this with the wow and flutter up and our tape age up. If I go back to transistor tape, it's obviously going to sound very different than that. Now, having said that, the Pod Go also has many other delays that we could put in there, right? If we hit our little button here, we've got all of these delays we can pick from. There's a duck delay, there's vintage digital, there's an Elephant Man. We also have this bucket brigade and the Adriatic delay, Adriatic swell. There's a lot of different possibilities. So, you know, it's not to say that we couldn't figure out a way to mimic the same sort of things there. But, so I mean, the Pod Go for what it is, extremely powerful and really amazing results. Truly world-class results, you know. It's going to be up to the end user to decide whether the extra money to add something like an El Capistan is going to be worth it. For me on my Stomp board, it actually is. I'm happy to have it. More so just to free up those extra blocks in the Stomp. But at the same time, I do get this kind of cool tweakability, which is kind of nice because, you know, since the Helix comes into my life, I haven't really been gassing for too much. So it's kind of nice to get something every now and then that's different, you know. But anyways, I don't know if that was helpful to anybody. I thought these are just fun videos to put together, quick demonstrations of comparing really how impressive the Pod Go is, but at the same time, I'm not trying to take anything away from the fine folks at Strymon. Strymon makes some beautiful, beautiful effects, and they've really gone out of their way to, you know, raise the bar as far as that goes, and they are excellent. So it really depends on what our needs are, but I hope it just is kind of like a good presentation to just give you so that you can make up your mind and a more educated decision when you're making your purchases. So again, super impressed with the Pod Go, super impressed with the El Capistan. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope I covered that okay, and I hope I didn't name things incorrectly in this one. I had a little more caffeine today in me, so I think that was the reason I messed up the Blue Sky and Big Sky name in the other video. So thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Please like the video, share it if you don't mind with anybody you think would like it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the little bell notification so you see when I put new videos out. I got a lot of exciting things coming up, and stay tuned. Thank you guys as always for the support and for tuning in though too. I really appreciate you giving me your time, and I hope you enjoy what I'm doing. Take care for now. Ciao.